So right now, if you're currently renting, everyone tells you you need to buy a house. However, if you own a home or you're about to buy a home, everyone says you should just keep renting. It's too expensive. So which one right now is better? So before you decide what's better for you, you need to understand the positives and negatives with both. So first, on rent, the most basic idea that anyone's going to tell you if they're pro rent or pro buying is when you rent, all of your money goes away. You spend all this money, you get none of it back. Now with buying, when you go to sell the home, you get the money back. And odds are, historically, you're going to build equity. So not only are you going to get the money back, also you might get a little bit more. Now, the difficulty right now is high mortgages because of high interest rates. And even though rent's still insanely expensive, for the first time ever, for the same house, renting is going to cost you less than the mortgage. It used to be the opposite, pretty much forever. But now with how high prices are on homes and the interest rates, technically for the same home, you're going to pay even more of a mortgage than you would be for rent. Now, a smaller but fun part is if you own a home, you can pretty much customize it however you want, depending on if it's a condo and it has HOAs, or if you have a detached home, even sometimes there's some restrictions with that. And obviously, if you're renting, you can't pretty much do anything. So if you're someone who, wants to create a space that's 100% you, that's almost strictly limited to people who own their home. Now, the best way that I can explain it, and these two kind of summarize everything. Buying, in the long term, you're going to benefit. Historically, if you own a home for 30 years or 10 years or 5 years, when you go to sell it, you're going to make more money on it. Now, it does, however, have a short-term benefit to rent. Say it's a year, is you're going to spend less money renting and you might not accrue that much equity in 1 year. So if you're just going to live somewhere for a year, renting's probably a better option for you just because you don't have a huge down payment and you might have to pay 1 month extra of rent as like a deposit, but you don't have, 3.5% of $1 million home. So those are really the basic ideas of the positive and negative for renting versus buying. Now, one thing that I like to point out when it comes to renting is a double negative. I don't think most people really think about this. So say you're renting for 2 years and it's $3,000 a month. That's the median in San Diego. So 3,000 times 12 times 2. At 2 years, you're going to spend $72,000 and you're never going to get that money back, no matter what happens. Now, one thing that people bring up is, let's say you don't make any money on the home and it only appreciates enough to cover your expenses. So say you get a whole whopping zero when you go to sell your home, you make $0. Most people don't realize that even you breaking even on a home is really saving you $72,000, because in the rent circumstance, $72,000 down and away, never get it back. So after 2 years, you're $72,000 down. However, if you buy a home and all it does is cover the amount that you spent monthly on a mortgage and all of the other costs, and basically when you do everything, you just made $0, flat even. You really, technically, made $72,000 more than you would have if you were renting. So that's something to take into consideration, is even if you don't sell your house and have a 30% increase and make all this money, even if you break even, it's still sizably amount better than renting. Also, with that in consideration, is think about how much money you need to lose on a home to be the same as renting. It's a lot of money. Not saying that it's not possible. Prices have gone down extreme amounts in the past, especially like in 2008, but historically that doesn't happen often. Historically, it's going to rise year over year. So just something to consider with renting is that double negative, which I don't think most people think of. So now, with all of that in consideration, the pros and the bads and the double negative of renting, what does that mean for you? Now, this is my overall opinion and my advice, and this is going to summarize everything. Number one, get professional help. That's number one. Number one is help. Talk to a professional, someone who does this for a living. That way they can help you in your individual needs. Because this video is going to do a brief summary. However, it's not going to talk specifically to you. So number one, get help. Number two is if you are renting now and you can comfortably afford a home that you like, there's no reason not to buy. Rent, comfortable, buy, whatever that is. But if you can comfortably buy, you should buy. If you are renting and you cannot comfortably buy, then you shouldn't buy. So this person should buy, this person don't. It really boils down to if you can afford it comfortably. Realistically, buying a home, there's no negative. Even if prices go down, you can move out, rent it out, you can refi, you can do so many different things to make sure that you end up in a good situation. If you own a home for 10 years, you're going to make money. It's going to be fine. But the only time where that's bad and you should not buy a home is if you cannot comfortably afford the payments. That's it. That's the rule. So if you're renting now and you're like, I comfortably cannot buy even a starter home, do not buy a home. 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 No matter what anyone else tells you, and they're like, oh, you'll figure it out. It'll be worth it in the end. You don't know what's going to happen, right? And if you can comfortably afford a payment, you have options. You can rent it out and you'll be fine. You can even sell it, which you shouldn't do if you're under, but you can sell it and you'll be fine. You can Airbnb it and you'll be fine. You can refi and you'll be fine. All of those things. However, what happens if you can't comfortably make that payment? It's going to be a lot more difficult to have those different avenues. So, in short, if you're renting now, 1, get professional help. 2, if you don't want to listen to my first advice, if you can comfortably afford to buy a home, you should buy a home. If you cannot comfortably afford it, don't. Simply because the benefits so much outweigh the negatives when it comes to buying a home that if you can comfortably do it, you should. But again, having any stress when it comes to the payments of a home is the only time that you're going to fail when it comes to real estate. So please, 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 if you are not ready, it is not your time. So as you probably would expect, buying is definitely going to be the king and win here. But if you can't afford the crown, then it's not time just yet. And that's okay. But reason being is, and why, because I already know what the comments will be is, Ryan, right now it's a bad time to buy. It's bad. Timing the market is impossible. No matter what anyone tells you, you can't do it. Sorry, whiteboard. You can't do it. You can't time the market. So when you can get in, you need to get in. And that's basically the most simple way to put it. You can't time the market, so when you can buy your first home. But if you can't afford the crown, don't buy it. I hope that made sense. If it did, please leave a like and a comment letting me know it made a little sense and helped you out. If you really, really liked it, consider subscribing because I release these videos once a week on Friday, teaching you how to buy a home and the benefits of homeownership. Thank you again for tuning in this week, and I'll see you next week.